What up, y'all? We are going live. TNA recap coming up next.
Hello, my name is Danny Luna, and you are watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.
What up, y'all? Here we go. So TNA Live, we're in Vegas. So much to talk about, but I'm not alone. We're going to do the whole recap of TNA Rebellion. She is back. She likes us, y'all. She really likes us. Marine Shadows in the building. How are you doing?
I'm great, TK. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for coming on. It's so this is like the good thing about having folks on the East Coast, because it's just like you can kind of finagle the time, and I am an early riser, so here we are. It works out. And
yeah, same me.
Same here. And Kyle's in the building too. He likes us too. What up, Kyle? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I wish I had the weather that you got right now, but other than that, I'm all right.
It's so LA and Vegas, it's not the same. Vegas is parts of LA is the desert too. Vegas is really, really hot. So I brought my dog here. So it's the first time in Vegas. There'll be a whole vlog about that. But there's like no grass. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, but the strip is great, but the living outside, we got an Airbnb. It's just like, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're going to stay in your house 24/7, yes. But if you want to like sit outside on the porch at noon, that's probably not the best idea because you'll burn up.
I feel like I'd need a couple of years to get to that point because I've lived in Michigan for 31 years, and our weather here is like the most bipolar of any state I've ever been in. So we get like 3 or 4 months of summer, and then after that, it's either rain or snow. There's no...
Well, I was going to be like, well, you'll fit right into New York because like at 7 in the morning, it was beautiful skies. Now it's cloudy. And I'm like, why?
I think that's everywhere.
That's how I felt in Philly a few weeks ago. I ain't going to hold you up.
Yeah, I think that's everywhere because I feel like also being an East Coaster, it's not as cold as it used to be.
Yeah, that's true too.
That's fair. That's fair, and I'll take that over what we normally get. But I'm just saying, like everybody that like I know that lives in the West Coast that complains about weather, I'm like, yo, like when you live in Michigan and we get all the seasons, there is no like we get nice weather for 6-8 months of the year. We get all the seasons, and when we get them, it seems like Mother Nature is having a hell of a time when it gets here. So
I'll give you that. We do complain quite a bit, but something that we don't want to complain about, I personally think, I was there live at the show, is TNA Rebellion in Vegas at the Palms. Overall, what did you guys think of the show?
Ladies first.
Okay, cool. It doesn't really matter to me, but all right, cool. Overall, it was very enjoyable. The one thing that I really like about TNA now is that they get it and they understand their product, their fan base, and like just how to put matches together. Like nothing is like really super over the top. Where it takes you out of watching the show. The fans are always good. The shots are always good. And they understand that like less is more when it comes to like TNA. So I had a very fun time watching Rebellion last night.
Kyle?
I mean, so I'm still trying to get to catch the full thing. I've seen everything that's happened at this point because I watch it most of the time from the Ultimate Insider thing, and for some reason that's not up there. But as far as the show, I mean, I agree completely with what she said in the fact that I feel like since TNA has kind of come back to TNA, instead of trying to keep up so much, I guess, with WWE and AEW, I feel like they're staying more in their lane and doing like knowing what works for their company. I think, what up, though, Cody from our show, checking us out. I appreciate you. But with that being said, like with Matt Hardy and all that stuff coming back, I like that at least a lot of the people that they're bringing back, except for like the new additions like Hammerstone and things like that, I like that they're catering to the fact that TNA audiences will know, like Sami Callihan coming back, TNA audiences will know. And with the matches, I mean, I've said this on this show before too, like I feel like TNA has some of the best action that you'll see in wrestling, period. I just think that it doesn't get enough eyes because of the network that it's on. So for me, all in all, I thought it was a great pay-per-view for them, and I like the names that we saw come back. For how long they'll be back, who knows? But I like the fact that TNA almost in a way has a feeling to me now where it's like, I don't want to say it's like an NXT because obviously it's not under the WWE banner, but like, look at Nick Nemeth, look at Naomi that came back there for a while, or Trinity, or whatever name you want to use. You've got all these people that have come back through there and then, kind of had like a resurgence of sorts. I like the way that TNA, I think it's smart for them business wise, because then you never know who's going to be in there. But I like the new vibe that we're seeing from TNA.
Yeah, I agree. I was just telling you guys offline. Well, I'll tell you guys that are watching us. I remember watching Impact and going to Sam's Club. Like even the vibe of the casino. If you guys are familiar with Vegas, it's kind of like an older Vegas, and then there's like a newer Vegas, and then there's like a supercharged new Vegas that if you go into one of those hotels, you'll be lost for days. Palms is a really nice compared to Sam's Clubs. No shade to Sam's Son's Town, excuse me. Sam's Town is just an older casino, older resort, whereas Palms is like new and updated. Even the inside of it, where they had the pay-per-view, is amazing. No seat, to me, was a bad seat in the house. Shout out to Andreas. He was in the 200 level, but I saw him there. Like it's just like no matter where you sat, you're gonna get a good view. So it's like the perfect kind of venue. And it's like, I agree with you, Kyle. It's like they know they're catering to their audience and they're catering to their level. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't say, your goal is always to be the best, but it's almost to be the best in your own lane. And TNA is being the best in their own lane. The graphics, the storyline, how they're telling the stories. They're not competing against anybody else. And that's like refreshing. They're doing them, period. They're not looking to the left and right. And that's kind of a really good thing. I think that's the resurgence of them. Shout out to the guy who was behind me who gave like the unasked commentary. Like it was just like it's just a different vibe. But he was just like literally, you could probably hear him in the pay-per-view, yelling. He was talking about AJ Francis's head and like all these things. It was
Leave my guy Dalla alone, bro.
Yeah, at first it was annoying, then it was just kind of like, this is what I do when I talk to the television, so I can't hate on this man for doing it in public. So like, live your best life. But let's get to that. Let's get to the first match. We had the Countdown to Rebellion, ABC versus the Rascals. How did you guys like this match?
I enjoyed it. Like what we were talking about beforehand, like with before we went live with like the whole Bullet Club thing. It's interesting now that you notice like they've kind of dropped the Bullet Club song sort of for ABC, but I mean, how could you have these 6 guys in a match and not be a banger? All the guys on the Rascals side of the match are all past guests of our show. And so obviously I may or may not have been a little bit biased in this match. But with that being said, it was, I mean, like I said, how could you not have just action galore in that? And I feel like the X Division, or even a match like this that isn't being billed as the X Division, that's another one of those things like we've talked about, which might be a theme of this pay-per-view, in which that if TNA focuses on the things that make TNA stick out, like the X Division and all those kind of things, I feel like those are the things that are going to make them thrive. So definitely a good way to start the show.
Marie?
Yeah. I was cooking during the countdown, so I was catching the highlights like after the fact. But I do like the fact that Myron Reed has like found a home in like TNA after not like being on MLW and stuff like that. I've always been a fan of ABC. They're always so good. I just wish that because I'm not even sure they're still contracted with New Japan, but again, the whole Bullet Club situation, like I really wish that they were utilized more in New Japan Pro Wrestling alongside like Bullet Club now and whatnot, just because of like they're so good together as a tag team. And it's kind of sad that like ABC, actually like none of these guys are going to be in like Best of the Super Juniors. Like that would have been like great because Best of the Super Juniors is coming up soon. The Rascals have always been great.
Philly
You know, what happened?
No, sorry, I was just commenting.
Oh, no, you're good, man. The Rascals has always been good. Overall, like these are the best competitors to like watch to make the X division grow, beyond like anything like anyone has ever seen.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I kind of feel like I can't remember if we talked about this offline or on, but like, well, Kai, because we watched ROH, it was just too long, and I feel like the TNA, even with the countdown, it might have been the same hours, but it just felt right. Like, all right, cool. Like we
Mhm.
left, it finished at, I think we were like literally walking out at probably 9 o'clock, maybe even a little bit sooner. It just felt like perfect. Like it was just the right amount of wrestling. And, the countdown, like I understand why they have it to kind of bring people in to buy the pay-per-view. But I felt like this
Mhm.
match should have been, in the pay-per-view. But great match. Great match nonetheless. So what do you think is gonna happen next?
I don't know that they.
Um,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that let's put them all together, facing Mustafa Ali, just to be chaotic. Go ahead, Kyle.
Obviously, everybody in this match has a big something to say with the future for TNA going forward, as far as like the X division and stuff like that. But to Marie's point, I mean, ABC is such a great tag team. TNA really has a lot of good tag teams. So, I mean, I don't know. I could see them keeping them together, but I mean, I think eventually we're going to get to a point where, they're going to break ABC up. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm
You
just
think
going to
so?
throw it out there. Yeah, I think at some point, because I mean, hell, you've got them both in the company. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Ace Austin and Gia Miller together on screen at some point, since they're always together on the indies when you see them anyway. And I mean,
Right.
it'd be a perfect way to split them when they do. Not that I'm saying right now is the time to do that, but I mean, I think there's a few different ways you can go with them. And for me personally, I just hope that Myron Reed gets more of a chance, like this gets him more shine, because I've been a fan of what he's been doing all through MLW and everything else. So seeing him on the TNA stage, I think is dope.
Phil saying, I would love to see Chris Bay
See?
get. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
know
dude.
what? You are, yeah. Phil, I'm definitely agreeing with you that Chris Bay has been with the company and he's been doing so many great things. But this is kind of one of those things where, like I've said on different occasions, that I love a great tag team and I don't like when they break up, but I guess they could do both. I guess not having that cheesy breakup, like we're no longer friends,
Yeah,
now we're
yeah.
gonna turn on each other, and now I'm gonna go my singles way. Like I rather, if it's like a legit tag team, for them to be like, all right, I'm gonna go off and do this, and then but we're still in it together. That's my preference, especially when the tag team has
Mhm.
just been like so solid. But that moves us to our next match. This was the TNA Digital Media Championship match, Laredo Kid versus Crazy Steve. What do you guys think of this match?
Kyle, you could go ahead.
Okay. So it's interesting to me that it's for the Digital Media Championship, being that neither one of these guys are like the biggest digital media guy. But at the same time, I've always thought that what Crazy Steve was doing with the whole decay thing and all that stuff was always something that was interesting to me. I like that he's kind of finally gotten a little bit of shine by himself. And Laredo Kid, I mean, it was dope for him to get the title win, being that he had like the big health scare with that injury and all that stuff too. So again, it's just another example of TNA having a lot of talent, in which maybe would you see Crazy Steve in WWE? I don't know. But if they stick to what makes TNA good, Crazy Steve is a known commodity there. So again, I think it's just another example of TNA utilizing their talent that they have in the right way.
If Crazy Steve ever did go to WWE, they're probably gonna pair him up with Nikki Cross.
And
The
happy
new
birthday to her,
Sandy.
by the way. Today's her
Oh,
birthday.
it's her birthday?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Happy birthday to Nikki Cross. If she ever watches this, it'd be mad cool. But Yeah, for like the digital media championship title. I think that should go to like a select few that can get TNA on the board for new fans to come in, new fans to purchase pay-per-view and stuff like that. Having it on Laredo Kid, like, you know, I've seen his matches and whatnot, but I wonder if he's gonna start doing like skits with the belt to be like
Mm.
the digital media champion. But I will throw this curveball out there. The last time that a promotion had a digital media championship was Invictus, and Jay Bougie was their champion. Like TNA, you guys could like get Bougie and be the digital person to tell people to watch
Mm.
TNA. We could do that.
I know. Do you think with? I mean, I definitely agree. You want somebody who's going to bring different eyes from like a different
Yeah.
platform. Would you say bring somebody who's like a Jake Paul of sorts? Somebody who's actually not like,
Oh,
because you have a celebrity, but somebody who actually is interested in wrestling, like an
I
interested.
mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely either like a celebrity or put it on like Matt Cardona or anybody that like talks a
Yeah.
lot that like ends up you know, like to have that championship title, essentially you're supposed to be talking crap, but in a good way to get people invested, because like, you know, you could just get them interested in that. So whether that's a celebrity similar to like what Logan Paul is doing, bringing in like new eyes and bringing in his streaming buddies, or like someone that's in wrestling and they get it and they're a character, like why not put this belt on Joe Hendry?
Joe
Like,
Hendry would be a good one, or AJ
yeah.
Francis. How about, you know, you see AJ Francis all over TikTok, all over Instagram, all the reels, all the he can shoot diss tracks like it's nobody's business, which go ahead and check out our chat with AJ Francis. But with that being said, I don't know. He's somebody that jumps off the page to me. I mean, every time you see him at a show, he's got DJ Who Kid and whoever else it might be that's coming through these shows and things like that. If I'm TNA, I want to capitalize on that. If that's what we're trying to do, is call this the digital media championship, to her point, I think it should be people who have like that big presence on social media. I'm not even mad at when Jordan Grace was the champion, because she's all over social media. But to her point, I think that would be very helpful in them getting, you know, more eyes on the company.
Phil saying they let Laredo Kid win, so they get some eyes, publicity on AAA. I mean, I mean, there's always, if that's the game plan, I mean, why not? I do like the AJ Francis spin, especially what happened last night, because obviously you don't want to put him in the picture with, you know, Moose, not yet, but that would be, yeah, because he would bring so many different eyes and so many
And it
eyes.
brings him legitimacy.
Yeah, and so many eyes are on him already. So yeah, I think that would be a good play if it's not already in the works, because it's kind of, how long has he been with the company? It's like a little over a month, right? It's not too long.
It's been
No,
like,
it's not too long.
it's been a couple months tops, but I only say that because, you know, and to his credit, and I ain't mad at him for doing it, but you know, I mean, you've seen him in TNA, you've seen him in MLW, you've seen him do
I've seen him
NWA.
everywhere.
Right. And that's my point, which is a good thing if it's somebody who's going to be a digital media champion. But by you giving him that digital media, not giving him, but give him winning the digital media championship, then you now are also solidifying him as a legit threat in TNA.
Right.
Because to your point, with how short he's been in the company, I also feel like there's this kind of an aura of like, okay, we don't know if this guy's really here or really staying here.
Yeah.
Putting that championship on him would make TNA fans look and be like, okay, well, shit, now he's won a championship. But like I said, with it being a digital media championship, he could then take it around to all these different places that he's going. I don't see why TNA, if I'm TNA, I wouldn't have any issue with that.
Yeah. I like that idea. And then also seeing him and now we're like fantasy booking him and Matt Cardona. Like,
yeah, he's got to get
the
his titty
indie god.
fixed,
Oh my gosh. But the last match that was in the Countdown to Rebellion, Spitfire against the K. Great match. What do you guys think of this?
You can go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. So I like the fact that they've brought Decay back together. I just like that. I liked the fact that they had went away from Decay for a minute to kind of show, like, I guess, the other personality for Havoc and
Mhm.
Rosemary. But
Mhm.
I like the overall vibe of Decay better. The team of Danny Luna and oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? Anyway, Spitfire. I'm
Mhm.
drawing a blank on
Jody
names right
Fred.
now. There you go.
Jody
That's
Fred.
what I was trying to spit out. I feel so bad because I see her in Detroit all the time too. But with that being said, I like the vibe of the team they got because at first I kind of was like, okay, is this going to be a team where they're just kind of thrown together? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
okay, we're putting this team together. Okay, they won the tag titles. I think that this run has given them both the opportunity to be able to be solidified. Um, as threats on their own, no pun intended, with the fact that Danny Luna is still very new in TNA. You know, she's part of subculture, but then to break off on her own and then them to go do their thing, because the difference with the TNA women's tag titles is it's a lot different than WWE in that I feel like they still are looked at as more of a big deal.
Mhm.
So I think
Hmm.
that this run is good for them both, and for them to be in there with a team like Decay, who's obviously been established for TNA for a while. I think I think it's a good look for both of them.
Yeah. No, yeah, I like I remember I got the opportunity to interview both Danny and Jody separately before they became a team. And it the progression was nice. If you watch them on social media and their interviews and stuff like that, like you knew it was coming. Versus sometimes you see tag teams and you're just like, wait, when did like they might be road buddies or whatever, but you never see it and you're like, wait, how did this happen? And I do like the Danny did mention it as far as them both being from the Commonwealth, one from Canada and one from the UK. So there's some similarities there. So that was a great thing too. Yeah, it was a great match. Spitfire ended up winning. What do you think is going to be next for them?
I don't know, but I will say that when it comes to women's tag team from TNA is that they always give um tag teams a chance. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter like anything behind the scenes, like a tag team will get a chance to like show off and show out. And that's what I really like respect about TNA. Now, as far as like what's gonna happen after this one, because Spitfire got the win,
Mhm.
they're tag teams, which I am not caught up on like who else is a tag team in the women's division. But I know like Masha is definitely like making a name for herself.
Mhm.
Um, but isn't she tag team with Jody as well too, or did they break up?
No, they were
Or
MK Ultra.
okay,
So yeah,
okay.
so it wasn't
Um,
Jody. It was the other
Yeah, it was
redhead.
Killer Kelly and
okay, okay, got it. I was like, wait a minute, she was with like somebody
Yeah.
that I remember. It could be them next. We could end up getting another one of TNA's like famous like hardcore matches for like the women, which I can't remember
Mhm.
off the top of my head, like any of the gimmick matches, but we'll see down the line.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure. They're an amazing tag team. It makes sense. I love a good tag team that makes sense. Not when where you're wondering like, wait, how did this even happen? So we'll definitely see what's going to happen with them. Um, Shout out to Eric Isaac in the chat saying it was a good tag team match as well. But that now brings us to the pay-per-view. So this is what y'all
Mhm.
paid for. So we had the System versus Speedball Mountain. How did you guys like this match?
I'm a big fan of Speedball Mountain. I've always liked Trent Seven. Obviously, with me being an MMA guy, I also am a big fan of Speedball Bailey. But again, I've always liked. Although I'm gonna full transparency, I wish that Eddie Edwards still had his old theme song because it's like one of the like most underrated theme songs in my opinion. But that's a
Mm.
story for another time. But I don't know, man. Him and Brian Myers, you can't really get two guys that are better as a tag team. I mean, when you consider Eddie Edwards' run with the Wolves, and then you got Brian Myers, obviously with
Mhm.
Cardona and all the stuff that they've done, I think. I mean, you've got a recipe for a great tag match, and I think that's what we got with this one. And I think having Alicia out there, I mean, I think the manager is very underutilized in
Mhm.
2024. So and having somebody out there like Alicia who not only can play the manager role, but she's also got the authenticity because people know that she wrestles as well.
Mhm.
So all in all, I thought it was a great match. I like the teaming of Speedball Mountain at least for however long it's going to be. I don't see them long term, but again, the system has really, I guess, kind of proved themselves over this pay-per-view.
Phil saying
Yeah.
Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers are a legit tag team.
Oh yeah, they are.
And shout out to Alicia. The dress she was wearing was fire, but I definitely agree. The manager role is definitely underrated, and she knows what she's doing. She's interacting with the audience. She's doing camera work. She's going like it's not. Here I am. I look pretty, and I'm just cheering I'm cheering them on. So shout out to her as well.
Yeah, this was a fun match for me to watch. I'm fans of Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards, like followed his whole career and stuff like that, and to see him like get his flowers, so to speak, in TNA being tag team champion, doing something different, it's kind of cool to watch. But Speedball and Trent, because it's like Trent Seven, the Mustache Mountain guy. Sorry. Watching them as a tag team was really like mind blowing to me because that's like the first time I like watched both of them in the ring against the other two. And I couldn't believe that they ended up kicking out of Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers' finisher. I was like, how do you do that? So it was really, really good. I'm not sure how long we're gonna have, was it Speedball Mountain as a tag team, but it's a very good tag team for like the meantime. So I had fun with this this tag team match.
Great match on the whole. And so now that brings us to the entrance. Mustafa Ali and Jake something for both of them was I don't know if you guys like heard some of the people in the crowd, but just hilarious. The TNA crowd, I think, I don't know. I'm gonna have to do a poll. I'm gonna need to get Run to Your Books, Marie, and have a section for crowd because it was
Okay.
different. But what do you guys think of this match?
I
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, man. I really loved it because it was very unexpected. I have always been a fan of Jake something. I've always been a fan of Mustafa Ali. We share the same birthday, so like I'm like that's awesome between me and him. But Jake something has been a monster since like I first saw him on the scene, and he's like super great, super talented. And I was really thinking we were going to get a change of the title just because of like the power bombs after power bombs, and then like doing all this like very powerful moves to Mustafa Ali, and I was just like, man, I could see this happening. But Ali ends up like getting the victory and like scurrying away. It was really well put together, really thought out, put together. And I'm really enjoying Ali's run. But I really think that it would have been interesting for Jake something to stop the clean winning streak that Ali was gaining, just to like have bragging rights, just to continue stories. Like who knows, But I loved it.
I am a big fan of this match for a lot of reasons. Jake Something's another guy that I've gotten to chat with on our show that I've always said I feel like needs to be spotlighted more somewhere, like because I've always just thought he had something, pun intended. But with that being said, I love what we're seeing from Mustafa Ali. I was a big fan in what he was doing in Evolve, even while he was with WWE. I feel like as a whole, I think this whole run is just giving him a chance to be able to, really show what he never really did in WWE. Because like, I think maybe that might have been something of what they wanted to do with Retribution, at least when it started, when they said the whole thing with him being the leader. But I think this is giving him a chance to really be able to spread his wings, show what he can do as a character, still have good matches because everybody knows what he can do as a babyface. And so, to her point, I thought that Jake something might take the belt, but to Phil's point over here, do you think he gets an option C? Oh, I think for sure he's going to try to utilize option C. he's the perfect guy to try to utilize option C, especially being the fact that he's playing the shit heel.
Mhm.
That's like the slimy way for him to get into the world title picture. Because
Mm.
Ali, I mean, only time will tell. But I wonder if he's another guy that I think he could have a good run here, but he's a guy I could see being signed again by WWE.
Okay. I thought Jake something was gonna take it, but I also felt like TNA's in this great spot. It's I don't want to do this comparison, but it's we've talked about it. I'm sure everybody's talked about it. You have AEW and they bring the names in, but it seems like they fumble sometimes on what they do, right? And it seems like TNA has the game plan, and with Mustafa Ali, it's just like it's better for him to maintain for now, just because there's more eyes on him outside of the TNA world. So I think it was as the match was going on, I was like, this makes sense. And then he had all his security with him too. So I feel like it was going to be a win on his part nonetheless. So that's I don't have my slides in order. Let's see here. Let's talk about Josh. We're going to go a little out of order. Josh Alexander and Hammerstone. How did you guys like this match?
I love this match. Like I said, Hammerstone is somebody that I've been a big fan of for a long time. I've said through the whole time in MLW, I didn't understand how WWE and other places weren't, like you would think looking at the guy that he's like the prototype. And then on the other side of the ring, you've got Josh Alexander, who really has made himself like whether he's got the championship or not, really kind of one of the faces of TNA in this new incarnation of what we've got, him being like the homegrown guy, and him and Ethan Page splitting from their big run as tag champs, and then him having the run he did as a world champion. I think he's the perfect guy for Hammerstone to be in there with on a first run, and I think both of these matches lived up to the hype. I like the fact that Hammerstone is bringing new things to the table, like with the torture rack. Because he always had used just the nightmare pendulum. I like that he's adding things now that he's in different places. And I think once again, I think that Alexander, to Phil's point, I think that Alexander really again is one of the stars of TNA. And I think you talk about guys or girls who could use, and I don't want to say that Alexander's using them as a springboard because he's been there for a long time. I don't at all see him as somebody who is using that. But I'm saying the work that he's done in TNA, both as a tag champ and now in his singles run, he's somebody that eventually I think could be plucked to go to WWE or AEW or whatever. I preferably would like to see it more in WWE as like a new school version, maybe of Kurt Angle of sorts. But I mean, I really think that Josh Alexander's done a lot to raise his stock, and I think that Hammerstone being in here will raise his stock, and he could be another one that gets plucked. Because again, we all know whether Triple H is involved or Vince is involved. Big athletic sumbitches that look like that are always on the radar.
This is true. But did you see the I believe it was this match when he landed on the table? Did you see
So
that?
I didn't get to see that because
Wait,
like I said,
did they land on the table? I know in one of the other matches, like there was a lot of table usage, but not this one.
There was one. Okay, I have to go back to my notes because there is one. I think I'm gonna somebody in the chat's gonna remind me. There's one where it's like I don't think that was supposed to be that finish, and it might be the next one we're about to talk about.
It probably is, yeah.
Because this is like the good and bad thing about professional wrestling. Is like sometimes the matches are so good, you're like, did they really get hurt or are they not hurt? Or the emotions are all over the place. But let's talk about this match, which is really interesting. We had Rich Swann with AJ Francis against Joe Henry. The entrance alone had me cracking up. So what did you guys think of this match?
It was okay to me. It was one of those like you needed that to break up like everything and like all the rest of the heavy stuff that was going to be later on in the show. But I really do like the whole idea of putting Joe Hendry with AJ Francis and like Rich Swann, and then having I'm guessing the celebrity guy, which I really don't remember his name, come out and like take the thing and like
Oh, Sean
be
Merriman.
Sean
on
Merriman.
AJ's side. Sean Merriman. Okay.
NFL
Is he a
player.
boxer? Wait,
NFL
he's a
player.
Former football player, but he also owns Lights Out Fights that runs out of LA and is on Fubo Sports and all that stuff.
okay. So that
And
makes
he's also
sense.
leaned out too. He looks really, really good. When he took his jacket off, so I was like, oh.
He's done, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's done stuff with Impact before. So like he's got a little bit in wrestling, if I'm not mistaken.
But yeah, overall, I just like, enjoyed it, and it was just okay to me.
So again, I think this would be perfect for the Digital Media Championship. But all in all, I mean, like I said, obviously I'm biased to the people that have been on our show and this, that, and the other, but I really feel like AJ Francis is somebody that's been underutilized, and I think that Joe Hendry is like the perfect foil for that, between like the song that Joe Hendry has and the fact that everybody sings along with it, but you've got AJ on the other side who could like verbally pick it apart and just try to like, you have like the war of words in there with it. And then you have to throw in the fact that AJ's just a big son of a bitch, which if you've never met him in person, I mean, he looks big on TV, but especially for a short guy like me, you're like, son of a bitch. This guy, son of a bitch. This guy's tall and he's big and he's strong and could fuck somebody up. So again, another reason why that works well in the world of wrestling. So I think that there's a lot of upside for Joe Hendry as well. I've liked what we've seen from him since he's come in. Overall, I think it's a good thing. And I mean, them adding Rich Swann to it, I hope Rich Swann finds his way back to a title picture, whether that's X Division or he's a former world champion as well, because I think he's very talented. But again, it's taking a guy who wasn't doing a lot, and now he's back on there again. So, I mean, like I said, I think that these two are really kind of the perfect foil for each other.
Do you think, because this is what I did see on social media, do you think that Rich Swann, when you looked at, because they did like a promo, I think it was in the countdown, where you saw, him, AJ Francis, and the rest of the crew together, and they've added more people to the money team. Do you think he looks like he belongs? Because a lot of people on social media are like, yeah, this doesn't make sense.
I think that's because he's already had so much success on his own. I think a lot of people are saying that because, I mean, people that are, again, TNA is doing a good job of catering to their audience, right? Social media, you don't always get people who maybe have kept up with everything that's in TNA. I think some people that are saying that kind of stuff, I would imagine, are probably people who have watched TNA a bunch, or WWE for that matter, and look at him as like, okay, Rich Swann was the former world champion and the tag champion and the X Division champion. I mean, he's already done most all the stuff you could really do in TNA. I could see it from a standpoint of people being like, okay, well, maybe it's a downgrade, but anyone that watches wrestling, everybody kind of has that cool off period at some point.
Yeah.
So if this is a way to plug him back onto the TV, because eventually they'll have to break up, and then who knows what they do with him from there. But to me, I kind of just think the only reason why there would be any backlash with that is maybe people that know Rich Swann's accomplishments individually.
I don't think it was a backlash. I think it was just more of a like, it's kind of like when I talk about like the tag teams, like some tag teams is like, oh, this makes sense. And then some tag teams are like, yeah, I don't know if this makes sense.
I feel it. I think it's too early to tell. We'll see. But I can feel that though, for sure.
I was going to add that, as much as I know Swann's career, like, as a fan, you're like, yay, all these accomplishments are awesome. And then seeing him with AJ Francis, even in my mind, I was like, wait a minute, what did I miss? Like, how did this happen? However, in the wrestling business, you do have to adapt and evolve. And some of those decisions may not make sense to like the fans, but a wrestler might be like, well, let me try this. Let me try this out. Let me be a heel in a different way where like you don't really necessarily see them how a normal heel would be. You know, this is different. You're going with AJ and his group and stuff like that. So people might be like, "Oh, this doesn't make any sense." But it's the wrestler to adapt.
Mhm.
That's all about the business. It's like adapting.
Yeah, I like Phil's comment. I think this match was solid. I love Joe Hendry. He is the TNA's version of R-Truth. I mean, when he did when he had the song and AJ and Rich Wall were in the video, it was just like chef's kiss. And I think you referenced that Maria a while ago, where it's just like you need these ups and downs. And I always think of X-Pac too. He was the first person to say it to me that it clicked to me. You need those ups and downs in any show, so you can be like, okay, you know, this was intense. Now I can breathe, and now we can go back again, kind of for that setup. So that's so that was really good. What up, Bosa? He says it feels like we're getting a Hit Row 2.0, especially with the end of the match celebration. What do you think about that? Well, I mean, yeah, there was some. It's so funny because there were kids. It was early enough to have kids there because, like I said, we got up pretty early. Like it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock. So there was kids shouting in the stands, and you know we have. And I'm assuming too, it's wrestling, so the parents know what they're bringing their kids to. But you know, you had a little bit of a you know, I don't know if it's like a a dancer girl session at the end. I don't know if they made it to the show, but I saw it. I was like, oh, this.
I mean, we saw it.
Okay,
yeah, we saw it. It made it. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is. I mean, all right. We'll see. We'll see how this progresses later on. I mean,
definitely.
Just the description of it is this pole dancer girl, like you know.
There's not a pole, so there's not. So I was trying to like figure out, you know, but clearly it wasn't like she was doing ballet in the ring. So it's
yeah.
Well, I mean, in reference to Phil's comment about the Hit Row thing, I really think, you know, especially after our interview with them, I feel like the Hit Row thing, even though I'm sure and everybody saw it in WWE, they had you know, Swerve as the leader, but I think that AJ had a lot more influence to that than people realized, especially like with when they came back to WWE and all those things. So, I mean, especially as a single, I mean, I think that AJ is going to try to flex his muscles a little more of it, dude.
Yeah, but I feel like you're seeing way more of AJ's personality. Like it was, I think they're trying to amp it up in WWE and they were missing the mark slightly. I like this run of him. Like you're seeing his personality when you're seeing him in all these indies and you're seeing him on social media. Like it doesn't seem forced. It's like, no, this is who he is, period, point. So that was it was really great to see. Shout to Rich, he got the win. Shout to Sean Marion for joining and doing the swerve. That was kind of a pun intended with that. But that goes that brings us to our full metal mayhem match, Frankie Kazarian versus Eric Young. What did you guys think of this match?
I'm always been a very big Eric Young fan. Always have, especially once they did the Sanity thing in WWE. I felt like that never really got the legs it should have, and I liked that he came back with that form of character, like with Violence by Design and all that stuff that we've seen in TNA. And I really liked the promo video that they had before it, where he was like kind of almost like battling with like his own, like the other side of him, like his alter ego of sorts. So I really like that going into it. I'm happy for Frankie Kazarian too, because I mean, realistically, I don't think to Phil's point, you know, he's criminally underrated. I really don't think, even though they were some of the originals, you know, like we talked about before we went on the air, you know, he was one of the originals that was really there with AEW and one of the first guys to really kind of plant his flag. I just never really felt like when he was in AEW, they ever really used him and Christopher Daniels like the way fans kind of expected them to, with like their history in Ring of Honor and TNA and all that stuff. So for me, I like this match for the fact that I like that they're highlighting the people who have their histories in TNA and of sorts. Not that I'm saying that they should lean on old talents, because like I said, to what I just said with AJ Francis, I think that he would be a great person for them to use with the digital media championship and to bring new eyes and things. But again, I think one of the keys for TNA is not varying too far from like what made them work. And I think Eric Young is somebody who's kind of really woven in the fabric of TNA, the same as Frankie Kazarian is. So to me, I think this was a good display of that. And I mean, who don't love a hardcore match every once in a while?
I think this was the tables, right?
Yeah, the one that you were probably going to talk
Yeah,
about,
it
the
was
weird ending.
Yeah, the weird ending. That's okay. So yes, because when it happened, everybody was kind of like, I don't think it was supposed to end like that. I was like, I don't think that was, because it was like almost like the edge of the table versus the table.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely. I hope he was okay. I think he ended.
Yeah, I hope so too.
He ended up walking out. They just brought the gloves. And, it wasn't. They didn't have like the rush of EMTs, so that's always a good sign. So maybe it was just but also the way he landed on his head might be concussion protocol too.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
because watching that clip specifically out of the whole entire match, to me it looked like Kazarian wanted to do a Spanish fly because he has that in his arsenal, but Eric Young has a lot of muscle. And Eric Young didn't jump with him in order to make the full rotation of the Spanish fly. So like when they're going, nobody really flipped as well as they should have. So like Eric's head just hit the corner of the table, and I thought like he was like knocked out, started bleeding and stuff. And like luckily like they ended the match there rather than trying to continue it. And then, like you said, since you were there, that Eric had walked out with obviously some help, which that's a good thing. But yeah, I think that it was supposed to be a Spanish fly onto the table, and I think that Kazarian would probably should have, like, he was probably still going to win anyway, but they had to make it a little bit more faster. Yeah, cut it short. But I would also like to add on for this match is that, like, I don't mind when wrestling promotions bring in like the veterans and the older talent, to showcase what they can do, because in a hardcore match, sometimes wrestlers want to do everything but the kitchen sink. And they don't realize that sometimes less is more, and like calculated spots are way better because you can get a reaction from fans with that calculated spot. You don't have to do like 10 spots in a row that doesn't breathe. And then you could just do one and fans would be like, oh, let's talk about that one spot.
Right.
I think that to showcase like Kazarian and Eric Young, because they've been doing it for so long, can teach the younger guys, like, this is how you could put a less is more hardcore match minus the ending, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a great match aside from that spot. I was just like, oh, but here we are. Great match nonetheless. So Frankie Kazarian defeats Eric Young. This brings us to Mike Santana and Steve Macklin, which was a surprise in itself. So what did you guys think first of Mike kind of being signed to TNA? Not new to TNA at all. So there was an incredible pop inside the venue. So what did you guys think?
I think it's a great pickup. I mean, again, this goes back to kind of what, like I said, that's why I kind of feel like the theme of this show for TNA is sticking to what they know. I feel like in a lot of ways. And I mean, I don't mean that as any sort of like a knock. I just feel like we talked about with AEW, right? Like you can bring in Will Ospreay, you can bring in Saraya, you can bring in Mercedes Moné, you can bring in any of them. You know what I mean? But it's always about how somebody's going to mesh with your audience. Bringing somebody in like a Santana who already has like a built-in history there with LAX and everything else there, I think is a great thing. I think him being back in TNA is good for him because clearly from what he said in interviews, he wasn't happy anymore doing the team with Ortiz, even though they were an amazing team. So I think TNA is the perfect place for him to really try to reinvent himself. If he's going to be able to do that somewhere where he's maybe a little more comfortable. Because I don't know that he's a guy that I would necessarily see getting picked up from WWE. Not that he couldn't, but I think he's a guy that would be more suited for like an Impact MLW type thing, at least as a single. So him coming back and getting to have a match like that against Macklin, who's another guy who reinvented himself when he went over there to TNA, I think it's a perfect matchup for it. I feel like something tells me I think we could see Steve Macklin, moving somewhere else soon. So again, good match for Mike Santana to come into, and again, it looked like on the pay-per-view that the crowd was hyped for him coming back, and ultimately that's what you want for a return.
Yeah, they it was absolutely it was everybody stood to their feet. It was a really great match. I just remembered to backtrack just because remember I was thinking, oh, somebody landed on their head. It was the thumbtacks. That's
for like Josh Alexander and Hammerstone when they did that
was
okay.
Yeah. I was remembering violence, and I'm like, which violent?
Which one, right?
It scared me.
They did the close up of they're taking the thumbtacks out of his thigh.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
I was like, oh man, what are we doing here? I really did like the fact that Mike Santana came back to TNA. Like that's his home. But to go with Kyle is that like, I would love to see Santana show up in MLW, show up in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and like, branch out a little bit and not just stay in TNA and whatnot. His match against Macklin was great, and I love watching Macklin as well. He reinvented himself like so great. But I'm happy to see him back. But yeah, that's basically about it for Santana.
I somebody just said it. I think shout out to Shell Wrangler for joining us. It's put up or shut up time for Santana. I hope TNA doesn't rush things with him. He has a lot of potential. I definitely agree with that. I'm really curious to see. I think TNA to me feels like there's an open door policy, and it's like come back,
which is smart.
Come back. There's no beef. Even if you go to wherever, you can always come back. You can always try to reinvent yourself. You have that room for creativity. We're going to listen to you. And, some stuff, I think because there is that room for creativity, people are allowed to be creative and not trying to throw stuff at the wall just so they can get on TV. And therefore, more things stick. So that's kind of a good thing on TNA's part of just how they operate. Now, this vignette had a comic book feel. Jonathan Gresham, what did you guys think of this? Because it just felt like a movie. It was just like this is awesome. I can't wait to see it. So just kind of a little bit on what do you think is to come?
It's interesting because he does the whole Cthulhu thing that I'm not like too well versed on, but it was interesting. It caught my attention. Now we get to deal with two different personalities of Jonathan Gresham, which I think can be beneficial because we all know him as like a technical wrestler, like the technical wrestler of like Bret Hart, Owen Hart, that type of like strict technical wrestling. And I love technical wrestling, but I do want to see another side to Jonathan Gresham. Maybe he gets a little meaner, a little aggressive. Who knows? I just want to see what happens after this whole vignette.
I like it for the fact that, to your point, I watched Ring of Honor, and I watched a lot of Ring of Honor before Tony Khan bought it. I was really hoping that Gresham was really going to get a chance over there to really kind of blossom in a way over there because he's, one of the stalwarts of Ring of Honor. But with that being said, I like it because at least now it puts some sort of personality with it. To Marie's point, obviously everybody knows that he's one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. I mean, if you watch wrestling, you should know that. But with that being said, he's never been really known for too much character stuff. And he's been noted in the past for being pissed that there wasn't more of like the Ring of Honor pure stuff, you know, that you would see in wrestling. So I think having this alter ego will give him a chance to, I think it gives him a chance to really show that he does have some form of that he does have some form of a character, which I think he desperately needed.
Yeah.
I'd like to, and to be honest, and a lot of people say this is corny, but I mean, I've always been a big fan of like, look, if people have got real life relationships, like the way we saw what we did with Deanna and Steve Macklin and all that, use the shit with him and Jordan. Like, I mean, if he's doing this alter ego type thing, you know, I mean, let her be like, yo, you know, I don't care what you do when you're here, but don't let it spill over into your home life or whatever. There's a million different ways you can do it, but I think the more you tap into that, the better it's going to be for Gresham.
Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in that too, as long as
it's done correctly.
It's done correctly, and in particularly for it's changing a little bit now because we're kind of treating our male and female wrestlers more equal. But as long as, in particular, like nobody suffers, meaning that like whoever the partner is, they're already kind of established, and they're no longer they don't become this person's husband or this person's wife type thing. So, which is not the case with Jonathan and Jordan at all, because they're both very established, which leads us to, and it's funny that you said that, because I thought in this next match, the TNA Knockouts World Championship match, Jordan Grace and Steph DeLander, he was going to appear. He didn't. A lot of shenanigans happened. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say, because I have mixed feelings. So what did you guys think about this match?
I couldn't keep track, but I loved it. Like I couldn't, like I was enjoying the match between Jordan and Steph, right? Like really, really good. And then we got to the whole entire shenanigans, and I was like, I bet you Matt Cardona kind of booked this like from his text messages and be like, guys, since I'm not gonna be there, this is what you guys have to do. It felt like a Matt Cardona, like he booked it. I just loved it though. Like I didn't really care. There was so many shenanigans. I was like, I'm having fun. I'm having fun watching it.
Oh shit. Sorry, that comment made me laugh a little bit.
Oh yeah, MDB 999 has quite the comments. What did you think, Kyle?
So I think it was a little convoluted, obviously, like she said. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on. But at the same time, as we saw from the WrestleMania main event night too, a lot of shit going on isn't always a bad thing. Sami Callihan being involved in all those things as well. Sammy's another guy who, if he's not going to go to WWE, I don't think that they would necessarily do a lot with him in AEW. So I was happy to see him come back to TNA. PCO being out there with Jordan as well. Shout out to our guy PCO. But all in all, man, I've said it on this show before too. I mean, when we were at the Royal Rumble, I think that Jordan is on one of the best runs that she could ever have, with her being able to be in the Royal Rumble with the championship and everything that she's doing. And I think TNA is doing a better job than a lot of the other companies do. And to Marie's point, being able to, really showcase the women on a similar level as what the men are, where even in an AEW or whatever the case might be, I don't feel as though like the women and the men are always on same par. So I think TNA does a better job of that. I think it was a car crash, but I think it was supposed to be a car crash. So all in all, I think it was a good thing, and I think the right person won.
Mixed things. I thought that Jordan was going to win. However, there was a moment where I thought Steph was going to win, and I was like, okay, Jordan is going off to do other things. That's kind of what I thought. Then all the shenanigans happened. It was definitely a car crash. I think part of me is like, well, why does this have to happen for the women's title match? Like, I understood the reasoning behind it, but it also kind of felt like there was just like too much. There was just like way too much going on. However, the right person won. And yeah, with like, yeah, I don't. It was just kind of like Jordan could do it on her own. And I understand it was almost like what 3 or 4 against 1 at one point. So it's just kind of like, okay, obviously she needs some help. That's where I thought when the lights went off, it was going to be her husband almost debuting. That's what I thought. But yeah, it was just a lot. And it was so funny because the guys behind me, that's exactly what they were saying, was just like, okay, well, like she doesn't need all this assistance. Like she's Jordan, insert the swear words Grace. So it's kind of like, why are we doing this? But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. Somebody said it in the chat. It was just kind of like it was the match.
It was definitely overbooked. Yeah.
Overbooked really well. I guess.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it. But yeah, Jordan is the victor. So what do you think is going to be next for Jordan?
I don't know as far as title challenger necessarily, but I think that Jordan is going to have a long run with the belt, though.
For sure.
I don't know. I don't know who the next opponent will be, but I feel like, especially with the run they've got her on again, like I mentioned with the Rumble and everything else, I think she could be back around. And then, hopefully, if Cardona comes back around, maybe they run Steph versus Jordan back. I think that could have probably changed some things in the match too, because I think if Steph was going to win, she needed to have help from Cardona. So since Cardona couldn't do that, I don't think it was the right time for her to take the belt. But again, I just think she's on the run as the champion. I think it would be cool if they inserted Jonathan Gresham, even maybe if by the time Cardona comes back. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. They had some funny moments. It's almost like that particular match had everything. It had the, oh, this is awesome, and it had this is strange, and this is funny, and it kind of all wrapped up into one. But that brings us to our final match of the night: Moose versus Nick Nemeth. What did you guys think of this match?
I'll let you go first, Marie.
All right, cool. I really enjoyed this. I've always been a huge fan of Nick Nemeth, aka Dolph Ziggler, no matter what. And I'm also a fan of Moose. However, Moose was scaring the shit out of me because the way he was turning and like floating up in the air and doing all these flips and everything. And I'm like, sir, you are mad tall. You can't be doing this, like one wrong move, like that's it. Like you can't keep doing this. However, it was a fantastic athletic match, and like Moose always puts on these really athletic matches that I'm like, this is really good to see. At certain points, I thought like, Nick Nemeth would have won, but then again, he would have been double champion. He would have been champion for TNA and then still holding the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship title from New Japan. But luckily Moose managed to retain. However, I don't know where we go from here with Moose. But I really did enjoy the main event. That was I don't want to say masterpiece because then people might get upset at me, but that's what my brain thought. It was a really good main event. I really loved it.
Huh?
I think it's a great match for Moose to be in there with a guy like Nick Nemeth. I think this match just shows why, like, anyone that really watches wrestling, and I would argue most fans that really understand wrestling would all say the same thing, that Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, whatever name you want to use, he's been criminally underrated. From when he won the Money in the Bank and had one of the best cash-ins they ever had to what he's been doing since he's been out of WWE. I think Nick Nemeth is showing why he's a perfect example of somebody who had all the athletic ability and all those things going into it, and how all that time up there in New York really helped him out. I really feel like he's going to be able to put that shine and put that spotlight on a lot of people in TNA, and for it to be with a guy like Moose, who Moose is a guy who has openly said that the reason why he went to TNA versus WWE and things of that ilk being that, you know, they would utilize him as a star, and him getting to be in there with a star like Nick Nemeth is only going to make him be an even bigger commodity for TNA, I feel like, because I know he just re-signed with them. Again, I would not be shocked if Nick Nemeth eventually finds his way back to WWE, but I feel like everything we've seen so far from him has been fire. I mean, I don't really know how else to put it, and I think he's going to do a lot to raise the stock, not only of TNA, but the people that are in there, and I think that this is a good match for that, for Moose.
Yeah.
You think Nick is gonna? You think he's gonna end back up? I feel like
I think he'll be back in WWE 100%.
Really, I feel like he'd be Hall of Fame, but I don't think he would do a run back in WWE. But
do you think he wouldn't do a run if he now gets to come back under Triple H and gets to come back and be like he is now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I most definitely think he could, because let's be honest, you also have to take an effect too. And I could totally be talking out my ass with this, but take into account that the guy is one of the hosts on Busted Open, right? So they have to talk about AEW and all that stuff. So he hears what everybody else says about that. He hears and sees all the things that are going on with locker rooms and all those things. And he said himself how there's a reason why WWE is what WWE is.
Right.
You know what I mean? And why when people come out of there, they say you don't really understand a lot of these things till you're in WWE. So for me, if he's not going to be out doing what he's doing right now and kind of getting to go everywhere, whether that's TNA, New Japan, he was just at a indie show here that Rhino ran wrestling just 2 weeks ago. If he's not going to be doing something to where he really kind of has freedom as to where he's going to go, I feel like this whole tour is just reminding. Look, it's like Jay-Z said, you know, I mean, allow me to reintroduce myself. You know, y'all must have forgot, Roy Jones said.
Right.
I think he's coming back and he's going to remind motherfuckers why he should have been a lot higher than he was in WWE. Now, again, I could be biased because I'm a fan of him, but I just feel like, given the landscape of how everything looks right now, if he's not going to be out in a way where he can do what he wants to do, the only other place for him, a guy like him, to go is WWE. I feel like
you just swayed me. I feel like if he does like one good, well, because you know what, it's funny because when he left, he said he was kind of like over it, and even when he had that weird contract, like I think it was like a 5-year contract where he was able to do his comedy and other stuff when he was with WWE, it just seemed like he was just burnt out. And now this one just seems like he's, you know, reinvigorated. He wants to be a wrestler. He wants to like kind of, he's allowed to kind of showcase his ideas and stuff like that. So now you have me swayed. And under this Triple H era, because we're in this Triple H era, you know, there's so many possibilities. Us on top of, you know, NXT being in play with so many younger talents. So there is that. Moose does come out the victor in this match. Amazing match. I don't know how Moose, and I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, I don't know how Moose keeps getting more physically fit. Like, it's every time I see him, it's crazy. And also to wear white trunks and not have a stain on them. That's like y'all try wearing all white to
full transparency. The first thing that popped in my head when you said that is, for all the Philly B who watches our show every week and those that follow MMA, the first thing that made me fucking think of is there's this guy Cody McKenzie that was fighting in all white shorts, and then like they caught like some kind of stain on his shorts, and that one picture got put all over social media.
Yeah, it's
a million fucking times.
That's impressive because you know he's using cocoa butter. So you know that's for that. He remains victor. However, the lights go out again, and Matt Hardy appears, which was insane. What do you guys think of this?
So you know, I've always been a fan of Hardy Boys, Matt Hardy, and stuff like that. So this is gonna be like 50-50 me here talking about this. If the 50% part of me is that if Matt didn't have any real life baggage attached to his name with all the shenanigans and everything else, I would be like, all right, cool. He's in TNA doing the whole delete gimmick. The other half of me being the analyst, even though my brain wants to be like, why is he here? Like, I just don't get it. I think that like with someone like Matt Hardy, he needs a break from wrestling. He needs a break from being out from like the spotlight for a little bit and recharge and get his family like back in order, get him back in order, get his mind back in order before he comes. I love you too, MD. Before he comes back into wrestling, I think that it was, I don't know, man. I don't want to say rushed to be put back into TNA, but like, it's sort of like, man, just take your vacation. Wrestlers, take your vacation. It's okay. So I'm not too thrilled. I'm just like, okay, you're here. What else can you do? Like, I don't know.
Okay, so I've got a little different take on this one because, like I said, I literally just interviewed the guy like last week. He was here at Comic-Con, and I didn't get to talk with him for very long. You can check that out on Knockouts and 3 Counts. But with that being said, one of the things that he really harped on when I asked him about what he wanted to do after leaving AEW is like, he said that he wanted to do things on his terms. Now, while I agree with your point that he maybe might have been a little bit better served with, a little bit better served with, a little bit of time off. I also, again, I go back to the same thing that I just said with Ziggler, though. I feel like although you say take your time away from wrestling, AEW was not really doing shit with him.
Right.
So realistically, the Hardys haven't really been doing a whole lot. See, it's in the comments. AEW booked him bad. And with that said, I think a lot of these guys, especially people like a Matt Hardy or a Santana or whomever who have had a history in TNA, I think that TNA is really becoming the place where guys say, okay, insert company letters here, whether that's WWE or AEW, didn't think I was shit and booked me like shit. Let me go to TNA or New Japan or wherever and show you what I feel like I should be, what I think I should look like. And I think Matt was always very proud of that broken character and said himself that he felt like WWE never completely utilized it. He never completely utilized it the way that he thought it should have been when they did the run with Bray Wyatt. Because I'll be honest, especially, and it totally could have been Matt just doing that, to get buzz. Because obviously, if anyone understands how the way the wrestling business works, it would be him. But, with him retweeting the stuff that WWE was putting out with the whole Bray Wyatt thing, I wouldn't be mad at an idea of a Wyatt family with him involved in some way. And let's not forget, read what his tweet said after the show. I'm still a free agent. I can show up where I want, when I want. Again, another thing that I think is smart that TNA is doing. Now, I'm sure they'd like to be able to lock a lot of these guys and girls down for long periods of time. But if you're able to catch that lightning in a bottle like you always hear about and be able to have a 2-3 month run, whatever it is, where, Matt comes back and it's the talk of wrestling because he's brought back the broken thing and all this stuff, whatever. Well, then that still benefits TNA. And then if he does go back to WWE, it just springboards him back. Me personally, I think it's probably, WWE telling him, go do your thing in TNA and, get your legs back under you before we run this kind of stuff. Because I really do think that he's destined to go back to WWE at some point.
Well, nonetheless, it was a surprise in itself. The crowd went crazy. And also, too, what you were saying as far as him being a free agent, the thing with TNA, they let their stories breathe. So it's not like, other places where it's like, okay, well, now you're here and they try to force him to do all this stuff. So, it could still be a little bit of a vacation. And, do you really need a vacation if you're doing what you love? But you know,
True.
we'll see the balance of everything. But it was a great way to end the nights. That is for sure.
Mhm.
Just them telling Moose to turn around, and he's like, oh my god, like I just, those little nuances that really stand out as far as somebody being a wrestler and somebody being a wrestler and entertainer. The way
Yeah.
he sold that, like, it was really cool. And again, the shout to keeping those white trunks still white at the end of all. Very impressed. But with that being said, Marie, the analysis. Where could everybody find you?
All right, so I'm Marie Shadows. I'm the host and the creator of the Square Circle podcast, and I also have a wrestling planner for you guys, which is basically for content creators, podcasters, even wrestling fans. It comes with a full-blown like daily show that you can write in, even a blank calendar, so you can get it at any time of the year. And even a travel budget, some notes, and a favorite section of mine where you get to have your own star rating, which I took it from like Uncle Dave, but you guys can make it better by coloring in how many stars you want. And this is the 2024 version of it for this year. So you can get it on Barnes and Nobles. Link will be everywhere. If you want, just contact me on Twitter at Marie_Shadows, and I will gladly give you the link to go buy one of these books because I made it for the wrestling community. Since the wrestling community was like, hey, how do you remember this? Well, now you can. You can take it with you on the go. Other than that, I do have a link in my Twitter where it links to everything that I do in professional wrestling, including like my website and like my own streaming places and where to buy the book and all that. So Twitter at Marie_Shadows.
Boom. And Kyle, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Detroit Knockout, Detroit NOKOUT on Twitter and Instagram, all that good stuff. Yes, it was my gamer tag. But with that being said, you can also find me Tuesdays and Thursdays, or 9 p.m. Eastern is usually our normal spot on Knockouts and 3 Counts. Make sure you check us out. Like I said, we just had Greg Gagne come through. We just had Matt Riddle come through. We just chatted with Matt Hardy. I just got to do the movie premiere last night for the Unbreakable Bunch with Ernest the Cat Miller, Glacier, DDP was in it, Haku. You had a whole list of people. Stan Hansen knocking people's heads off, so there will be interviews to come from that as well. Plus, like I said, we cover the combat sports side of things. So with all that being said, man, you can check us out there. Thanks for the opportunity. As always a good time to chop it up with you guys.
No problem. Just so happy that you guys like us to come back. But yeah, incredible show. Can't wait. Can't wait. I mean, TNA is just doing it. I mean, they were doing it before, but it's just this. I don't know. It's kind of like when you look at your old pictures when you first started on Instagram, and now the pictures are just more crisper. That's what TNA feels like. It's just another. It was already great, and they just added another level on.
I just still stick by what I've been said. No disrespect to Anthem at all, but good God, I hope they get on a bigger network. Hope to God that they get on a bigger network. Like I'm not trying to shit on nobody, but them being on Access is a lot of the reason why people don't know as much as they do.
Right, but I mean, they do have. I mean, I have my YouTube description.
I use the YouTube. I use the YouTube thing too. That's how I watch it. But I'm just saying, as compared to like AEW or WWE, it seems like it's a lot more easily obtainable a lot of times than TNA is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. It just if they do once they do that, hopefully it's a network that appreciates them. Like
that part.
We'll see what happens. But
not Destination America.
As far as everything, you guys can follow me on everything everywhere at TK Trinidad. Make sure you check out Women's Wrestling Talk on all streaming podcasts. We did drop an interview. We dropped actually 2 interviews with the King Bees, one at NWA last week, and then one this week. They are now 2 belt champions, so shout out to them. We also dropped another interview with J Rod. She is one of the wrestlers from Knox Pro. Really great. You should, if you're not following her, you should follow her because she's on the rise on so many levels. So definitely check out all that stuff. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Till next time, guys. Ciao for now.
This is the Draw the Death Machine, Sammy Callahan, and you are watching, you are listening, and you are supporting Women's Wrestling Talk.
Thanks for joining WWT. Don't forget to like us on all social media platforms at WW Talk Pod. Like and subscribe on all video and audio platforms, like yesterday, my G. And check out our website at www.talkpod.com. Thanks for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling network on the planet.